Now let's continue on and see what the lawgiver gave, the most important 10 commandments. Won't go over them except to say, first one keeps you in contact with the true God. Second one keeps you from worshiping any physical idol. Third one keeps you from taking God's name in vain. The fourth one keeps you in contact with God on a weekly basis for education in His Word. Then the fifth one is the cornerstone for society. Children honoring father and mother taking care of children. Then the next one, you shall not murder. Now the King James says kill. It's murder, not kill. You shall not commit adultery. You shall not steal. You shall not bear false witness against your neighbor. You shall not covet your neighbor's house. You shall not covet your neighbor's wife, nor his manservant or maidservant, his ox, his donkey, or anything that is your neighbor's. Okay? Now, based on that were other lesser laws. What do you mean murder? What is murder? Okay. Well, it is willful determination of exterminating someone else, especially if you're in hiding, to kill them. Okay. That would require your life. Now, they also had this in chapter 21, that if there was an accidental death of someone, the one who was responsible could flee to a city of refuge until they set up a judging committee to go thoroughly through every aspect of the charges brought against him, okay, to see if it was accidental death or not. Then, let's read this one here. If men strive and strike a pregnant woman so that there is a miscarriage and no harm follows, he shall surely be punished according to as the woman's husband lay upon him, and he shall pay as the judges determine. So they set up a system of judges, and the judges were to be obeyed. And all of these things, life for life, tooth for tooth, are as the judge would determine. Now, if the things were, how should we say, very complicated, then they would go to the priests. Let's come to Deuteronomy 17. Now you see, what's important in all of this is that truth, love, honesty, dedication for the well-being of the citizenry against those who seek to harm it. Okay? Now, you'll find there in thievery that the one who was the thief had to restore. In other words, restitution. Now think how long Black Lives Matter and Antifa would last if tomorrow they were presented with a bill for all of the damage and lost wages and destroyed businesses that they caused. How many rioting protests do you think would be after that? And then to take legal recourse, and all of those corporations and individuals who donated to them, they would also be fined for promoting a terrorist organization. That would stop it. See? That would be God's way of doing it. Okay? Now back to this where you have a complicated case. Okay? Let's pick it up here. Verse 2, chapter 17, the book of Deuteronomy. Deuteronomy 17, let's pick it up in let's see. Verse 2. if there is found among you inside any of your gates, which the Lord your God gives you, a man or woman who does what is evil in the sight of the Lord your God by breaking his covenant, and goes and serves other gods and worship them, even that either the sun or the moon or any of the forces of heaven which I have forbidden, and if it be told you, and you have heard and inquired diligently, and behold, it is true, and the thing is certain, that such an abomination is done to Israel, then you shall bring forth the man or that woman who has committed that evil thing in your gates, even the man or that woman shall stone them with stones until they die. Now why? Look at what happens when other religions and gods and things take place. Look at the manifesto of Antifa and Black Lives Matter. See? They are dedicated to destroying the country. Okay? Now notice this, verse 6. At the mouth of 2 or 3 witnesses shall he that is worthy of death be put to death. At the mouth of 1 witness he shall not be put to death. Where in the book of John do you find that Jesus adhered to that? Where do you find that Jesus adhered to that? It's in the book of John. Chapter 8. The woman taken in adultery. What do you suppose? Now, I think Jesus wrote this in the dirt. Where is the man? How can you catch a woman in an act of adultery if there isn't a man? See? Miscarriage of justice. So they all left. And you will notice Jesus didn't say, I forgive you, because this was not grace. This was a miscarriage of justice. He says, has anyone condemned you? Said, no, sir. Well, I do not condemn you either. Go and sin no more. See? It wasn't a matter of forgiveness. It was a matter of mistrial. See? Because it says you'll bring the man and the woman and both shall die. Okay. Now, verse 7, the hands of the witnesses shall be the first to put him to death, and afterwards the hands of all the people. So shall you put evil away from among you. And if a matter be too hard for you in judgment, between blood and blood, and between plea and plea, and between stroke and stroke, if a matter is of strife within your gates, then you shall arise and go up to the place which the Lord your God shall choose, and you shall come to the priests, the Levites, and to the judge that shall be in those days, and ask, and they shall declare you the sentence of judgment. And you shall do according to the sentence that they declare to you from that place which the Lord your God shall choose, and you shall be careful to do according to all they tell you. Well, this is like a Supreme Court. Okay? Now, in every case, you go along with everything. What is required in all of this? Facts and truth, right? Today, too many people operate on emotions and slogans. You must have facts and truth. Okay? Then it goes on to say that if they don't do what they're supposed to do, then they shall be put to death. All right? Now, let's come to the New Testament. Let's come to Romans 13. Let's talk about the police for a little bit. All right? Romans 13. You want to dissolve the priest, the police rather, not priest, Romans 13. Remember where we said in Genesis, the 9th chapter, that's where God gave sovereign power to the nations. Okay? That's why every nation has a system of judging, a system of policing, and armies living in the carnal world. Okay? And because just like there are criminals on an individual basis, gangs on a group basis, there are evil men on a national basis who desire to kill and destroy other nations. That's called war. Okay? So here's the policing power given right here. Verse 13, or verse 1, chapter 13. Let everyone be subject to the higher authorities, because there is no authority except from God. Now, the church is not a sovereign nation. That's why we do not carry out the death penalty. And the church is in every sovereign nation from time to time down through history. And the greatest policing that the church has is disfellowshipment. Okay? Because you cannot have two sovereign powers within one geographical area. How do you think it would be if we set up a tribunal here in Hollister and someone in the church sins a grievous sin, and they come here and we have a judgment and we execute that person? Well, the authorities would shut us down right away, because that is against what God has established, and that would be ungodly for us to do so. The church has no authority of the administration that is called in 2 Corinthians 3, the administration of death. Okay? The other authorities, the police and the judicial system, every nation has set up. Question: did Paul use the judicial system? Yes, he did. What did he do? He appealed to the high court of Caesar, right? So what did they do? They took him to Rome. That's a good way to get there, have someone take you. Okay. Now let's go on. Those are from God. And those authority that exist have been initiated by God. So look what happens when you have defund the police. Look what happens when you don't charge them for thievery. They have some states where they have laws. Now, if it's used to be a felony, if you took so much value of goods and stealing, now I think it's in some states up to $750. So what do they have? They have gangs come into the store, they already plan what they're going to get, and they walk out with their arms full, and they can't even call the police to charge them. Okay. That is lawlessness. Okay? Now notice, this authority we are to submit to unless it's preventing us from serving God and worshiping God. Okay? Now, that's why in America we have the Second Amendment. Freedom of peaceful assembly and freedom of religion, worship. Okay? Now, other countries have it similar, but many of them have a state religion. I don't know if you've heard the alliance between the Pope and China, but now China is going to let some of the Catholics in if the Chinese government approves of the leaders of the Catholic Church. See? That's not like America. See? Freedom of worship. That's what we have. Okay? However, on the other things, so then the one who sets himself against the authority is resisting the ordinance of God. And that's what all of these lawless groups are doing. They're not only going against the established government, they are going against God because he set the authority. And those who resist shall receive judgment to themselves. So it's entirely, absolutely correct for President Trump to sign an executive order concerning the tearing down of the historical monuments. Because the Congress will not act. Okay? Rulers are not a terror to good works, but to evil works. Do you desire not to be afraid of the authority? Then practice good, and you will have praise from it. For he is a servant of God to you for good. And he does not wear the sword in vain, because he is a servant of God, and an avenger for wrath to the one who is practicing evil. And all of this is turned upside down today. That one case in Atlanta, Georgia, you look at the video cam that they had of that, that man had many arrests, he was drunk, he had already been in jail, resisting arrest, and he beat up 2 policemen, grabbed the taser, was running away and shooting it back at the policeman, and they shot him, and they're charging the policeman with murder. That is lawlessness. That was a justified thing to do for resisting arrest, because if you're the kind of character that that guy was, and you're running away, you don't know what they're going to do. Okay? He is a servant of God to you for good. But if you are practicing evil, have fear. Okay? That's what should be stated. That's what should be pronounced everywhere. And what they should do in cases like this, where they have renegade governors and city mayors, they should arrest them for their lawlessness against the people, against property, against the good welfare of the state. But when you get corrupt leaders and corrupt judges and corrupt laws, you have lawlessness. That's what we have today. Okay? An avenger for wrath for the one who is practicing evil. Consequently, it is necessary to be subject to authority, not only because of wrath, but also because of conscience. For this cause you are also obligated to pay tribute, that is, pay your taxes, for they are servants of God, continually engaged in this very thing. Okay. Now what do we have today because of the lawlessness? 272 policemen in New York City have applied for retirement. You want to go out and risk your life when you have no backup by the authority that you have to submit to? Okay. They have all of that. So what we're looking at is this. Right here in Matthew 24, verse 12. This is what we have in a society. Okay? And because lawlessness shall be multiplied. Is that not what we're seeing? And lawlessness even into high levels of politicians. Now, that's not to say there aren't corrupt Republicans, but the majority of them are in the Democrat Party. Just like today. The governor of California despises 4th of July celebration because he hates this country. So he has misused his authority to say no gatherings, you can't go to the beach, you can't have a barbecue in your backyard or we will arrest you. That is lawlessness. Especially when there is no account of when the mobs were burning and looting, that the doctors in New York and the various other cities said there was no increase or uptick in the Wuhan virus. But you can't assemble to worship God. You can't assemble to celebrate the 4th of July because I, the oppressor king of California, tell you no. And that's the same way in other states as well. That's lawlessness. There's lawlessness by rampant crime. There's lawlessness by criminal acts of politicians against the people. Okay? That's not of God. Now then, let's look at another thing that's important. Let's come back to the book of Proverbs, chapter 1. Chapter 1 is very interesting. Rochelle and I were talking about this morning. But chapter 1 tells young people, don't get involved in gangs. Okay? So let's read it. We'll start right here. Proverbs of Solomon, the son of David. Now, remember, the first 10 chapters are from David. Okay? To know wisdom and instruction, to practice the words of understanding. In other words, that you can be mature in mind and thought so you can be a responsible individual. Okay? To receive instruction of wisdom, righteousness, judgment, and equity. To give prudence to the simple. Now, what happens when you don't educate them? Look at the mobs that were out there. No education. No proper education. They've been educated in all of the wrong propaganda from the godless people who are in the universities and in the schools. A wise man will hear and it will increase learning. A man of understanding shall attain to wise counsel, to understand a proverb and its interpretation, the words of the wise and their dark sayings. Now the first thing here, notice, all children need to be taught this. That's why it is honor father and mother, because God has put them over their children. If they're going to bring children into the world, they are responsible to teach them, and the children are responsible to obey them. That's the way God made it. Okay? So here's the first thing they need to learn. The fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge. You learn to fear God because He has given your parents to be over you for your good. See? Until you can be old enough to function on your own as an individual. But fools despise wisdom and instruction. And that's what happened, right? They get mad, they run off, they reject their parents, and they end up in committing crimes, they end up with drugs, girls end up pregnant, and the whole thing. My son, hear the instruction of your father, and forsake not the law of your mother. There it is, the fifth commandment. The fifth commandment is that fulcrum commandment that makes them all work. The first 4 and the last 5 after the 5th one. For they shall be an ornament of grace upon your head and chains around your neck. In other words, if you treat your parents with godly, loving respect, God is going to bless you. If you don't, then your parents have to discipline you, and if you don't go to the discipline the way it should be, then you're going to get yourself in trouble. And what's the first thing going to happen to you? You're going to find friends that are rebellious, right? So, verse 10, my son or daughter, if sinners entice you, do not consent. Don't agree to do things that are wrong, that are crimes, that are evil. If they say, come with us, let us lie in wait for blood. We will watch secretly for the innocent without cause. Let us swallow them up alive as the grave and whole, and those that go down into the pit. We shall find all precious substance, and shall fill our houses with plunder. Now, what happened with the autonomous zone in Seattle? Was it a summer of love? No. They had rapes, they had robberies, they had destruction of property, they had shooting. Right? What did they say? Let's get rid of the police and get it out of this area here, and we're going to set up CHOP. Okay? Well, after a couple of weeks, and even the police chief went along with it. Imagine that, getting rid of a precinct of policemen in the area. The chief of police went along with it. Then, when they got out of there, and she saw all of the graffiti and all of the mess and everything that was broken and destroyed, businesses ruined, people's hard earnings all lost, I was surprised. I didn't think it would be like that. So you see what happens when you have tolerance and corruption within the authorities, and you have violence and determination by gangs. That's lawlessness, and if it continues, sooner or later, the country will come down. Okay? So it says, verse 14, cast in your lot among us, and let us have one purse. My son, do not walk in the way with them. Keep back your foot from their path. Now, I remember there was a young girl over here in middle school. Okay? And she had a couple of friends. Now, her mother told me this, so I know it firsthand. And the friend said, let's go out. Now, that's that school right over here, just diagonal from us. Okay? Let's go over here at the corner of the playground and let's smoke some pot. Okay? She said, no. Walked away. She had good common sense because her mother taught her. And she has been successful in her life. Graduated from high school, took 2 years of college, and just recently got married. And they have a wonderful 1-year-old boy. Okay? Now, if she'd have gone the other way with marijuana, what comes next? Speed, cocaine, and what comes next? illicit sex, and what comes next? Unwanted children. No one to take care of that little child. The mother's incapable, and so what happens? We have a lot of children growing up with no adult supervision or examples to follow. See? So they get in these gangs. Okay? Now notice, think of these mobs now as I read this. For their feet run to evil and make haste to shed blood. Surely in vain the net is spread in the sight of the bird. In other words, if you don't enforce the law, it's going to run away from you. But they lie in wait for their own blood. They watch secretly for their own lives. See, they don't realize it, but they're cutting their lives short. Lawlessness in kids' gangs and teenage gangs, unless it is by adult supervision for a sport or a hobby or a craft or whatever it is, this is what it's going to lead to. Okay? What happens when they get involved in robbery and guns? Look at Chicago. Chicago. Dedicated to murder by gangs. And they even had reporters go in, the gangs that show them their weapons. And they know that's their life. See? Amazing. Here it is right here. See? That's why the Word of God is so important. That's why there are laws. You have God's laws which lead to life and eventually eternal life. You have the laws of Satan the devil which lead to death and destruction. See? That's what we see. I mean, right there on television, you get tired of seeing it. I remember one day they had the screen split 4 ways with 4 riots. Okay? But it's for their own blood, it's for their own lives. So are the ways of everyone who gets gain by violence. How much did chops amount to up in Seattle after they destroyed everything? Huh? Think of that. Who takes away the life of its owners. Wisdom cries outside and utters her voice in the streets. Everyone saying, don't do it. See? She cries in the chief place of gathering, the opening of the gates. In the city she utters her words, saying, how long will you love simplicity, simple ones, or put it, stupidity, stupid ones? Isn't it stupid to do the things that they did? I mean, how stupid is it? You take a wonderful business and you come up and you smash in the glass windows, and then you have a horde of people go in there and take everything out of the store. Okay? And will scorners delight in their scorning? And will fools hate knowledge? Turn back at my reproof. When you're told, don't do it, then don't do it. Don't do it. Unless they're trying to tell you to quit worshiping God. Behold, if you do, I will pour out my Spirit to you, and I will make my words known to you. Because I called, and you refused to hearken. How many times were they told? Don't do that. I wonder how many of the parents of those kids were told by their parents, don't do that. They didn't do it. I stretch out my hands, and no one paid attention. But you have despised all my counsel and would have none of my reproof. I will also laugh at your calamity. I will mock when your fear comes. See? Because lawlessness never works for the good. Never, never. Okay? When your calamity comes like a storm, and your destruction comes like a whirlwind, when your trouble and pain come upon you, then you shall call upon me, but I will not answer. They will seek me early, but they shall not find me, because they hated knowledge and did not choose the fear of the Lord. So that goes right back to the beginning. The fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge. See? And the consequences will come sooner or later. Therefore they shall eat the fruit of their own way and be filled with their own devices. For they don't want to be beat upon, but they beat upon others. They don't want to be killed, but they kill others. They don't want to have their goods taken from them, but they're happy to take other people's in thievery and squanderness. Okay? For the waywardness of the simple shall slay them, and the complacency of fools destroy them. But whoever hearkens to me shall dwell safely, and shall be secure without fear of harm. Okay? Now then, chapter 2 is a very interesting chapter. We'll take a few minutes and go into that, because after all of this, you need a way of recovery, right? Can they recover from this? Yes. If they stop doing the things that are wrong and start doing what is right, they can recover. Okay? So chapter 2. My son, if you will receive my words and treasure up my commandments within you. In other words, reprogram your rebellious mind with the Word of God. That's how to do it. I mean, that's the best way. This is the initiative from the one who has been doing wrong. If they want to change and do right, here's how to do it. You can preach to them all day long and tell them to do it, but if they stay in rebellion, they won't do it. Okay? So that you incline your ear to wisdom and apply your heart to understanding. Now notice, I want you to notice the ifs. It says, verse 1, if. Verse 3, yea, if you cry after knowledge and lift up your voice for understanding. That is, seek out what is right. Do what is good. Think what needs to be. If, conditional. Verse 4, if you seek for her as silver and search for her as for hidden treasures. Okay? The initiative must be taken by the young people growing up themselves. Mothers and fathers can teach them. Okay? Or if there's a single parent, that mother or father can teach them. And some of the single parents have done great jobs with their children. Okay? The one that comes to mind is Ben Carson. His story is, he was with a gang and ready to go out and do some very violent things, and he got really angry, and the best I can remember the story is this: he shut himself in the bathroom and read the Bible, and that got his attention. And look at him now. Huh? One of the best brain surgeons in the world, and head of HUD for the government today, and doing more to help the depraved and the deprived communities in these large cities. Wonderful. Okay. Now notice what you have to do. What will this do? Okay. If you receive the words, if you seek for knowledge, if you listen to the voice, if you do it as if you're going after silver, okay, now why? Because when you educate yourself, when you get older then, you're going to be worth more to whoever hires you. And you will make more money than if you just dabble your life and do nothing. See? I remember one young lad that I met him and knew him, and he was smoking pot. So I got angry at him, and I said, because he was just laying around and doing nothing and smoking pot. Yeah, man. And I said, look, unless you get your life squared around, you're going to amount to nothing. Somehow that got through to him. He's doing quite well with his life. Married, has one child, another one in the hatch, and is building a brand new house. Okay? The reward does not come immediately. It comes when you prove that you can do it right over a period of time. Okay? Now notice what it will do when you come to God. Then you shall understand the fear of the Lord, why you should fear God. Yes. People say, well, God's a God of love, why should you fear Him? Because if you transgress, you're going to suffer the penalty. Do you like the penalties? No. All right. Understand the fear of the Lord and find the knowledge of God. For the Lord gives wisdom, out of His mouth, which is written down for you, comes knowledge and understanding. He lays up sound wisdom for the righteous. He is a shield to those who walk uprightly. He keeps the paths of right judgment and preserves the way of His saints. Interesting. God's blessing on you as you go about your daily life. Okay? Even young people don't like difficulties. But if you don't like difficulties, then make your life right. Okay? Notice then again. Then you shall understand righteousness and judgment and equity and every good path. Wisdom shall enter into your heart. You're going to be smart. Not stupid. Look at those people out there in those gangs and lawless riots. They're stupid. That's all you can say of them. See? Well, they didn't follow God's way. Okay? Verse 11, discretion shall preserve you, and understanding will keep you, to deliver you from the way of the evil man and from the man who speaks wicked things. Okay? You won't be tempted to do evil. You can overcome the temptation. Okay? So this is why you have to remember this. Everything that there is functions by law, regardless of what it is. But the most important things that need to function correctly are us as individuals with the laws and commandments and Word of God and Spirit of God. That's the most important thing, because everything else out there is physical and temporary. But God is offering eternal life. And that law of life is through Jesus Christ. So lawlessness, if they don't turn it back, it's going to destroy us. So let's hope it can be turned back.